Good morning. I'm Chuck Smith. I'm your worship associate for the day. For those who don't know me, I guess I should have introduced myself earlier, but it was just the candle lighting and Zoe was the center of attention. Groundlessness, the acceptance of the fundamental changing and permanent nature of the world may not seem like a calming idea unless you're a student of Buddhism or some other Eastern religions. Chungrum Trungpa Rinpoche, founder of Naropa University, has described groundlessness in this way. The bad news is that you're falling through the air, nothing to hang on to, no parachute. The good news is there's no ground. As I recalled experiences of groundlessness from others and reflected on my experiences of groundlessness as I prepared for the day, I discovered four things. First, when I hear a story that is already complete or the chapter is closed, I feel comfort in being able to anticipate that things will be okay in the end. There's no big splat at the end with the fall. Second, other people's stories of overcoming agonizing groundlessness were inspirational to me and to others, and easier to hear. I never fully understood how it happens, but it's always amazing. There's an old gospel song entitled How I Got Over. The chorus goes, "My soul looks back in wonder, how I got over." Third, my periods of disquieting groundlessness felt like they would never end until they did. Fourth, good things don't last unchanged either. Maybe we all discover the pain and blessings of groundlessness the hard way, through experience. Being grounded and then groundless as a father has been my main path to discovery. I proudly identify as a dad and a cheerleader of other dads being connected with their children at all ages. I volunteered for my classroom to be the classroom mom when my children were in the first grade. And of course, they had to change the name of the title at that point. I would take pictures of dads with their children to inspire other dads and raise awareness with others about the differences that dads make. I even took it to the next level. I became the hands-down favorite granddad and grandparent among all of our grandchildren, beating all the contenders, and there's a few of them. Even my wife, Sheila, occasionally gets mad over the grandchildren's attraction to me. I don't think that the grandchildren have considered groundlessness as a real point in their life at this point, but they like me, so I'm going to be there forever. So imagine how shaken I was when my whole grounding as a dad suddenly collapsed. The mother of my children left with the children. I no longer had daily access to my children that allowed me to be the father that defined who I was. My world fell apart, and everything was suddenly in disarray. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't concentrate. My only sustained thought was wondering how I would survive the day without my children. Each day of surviving, not being a dad to my children, did not increase my confidence that I would be able to survive the next day. I was nobody, and there was nothing. I was groundless. Grounded to nothing and unsure if I would ever be reconnected with my children or be able to be the kind of dad that defined who I was. I didn't just go through this once. I went through it again about 8 years later. I was living two of my discoveries. Disquieting groundlessness feels like it will never end until it does. And good things don't last unchanged. My good life as a dad did not continue unchanged, and my life as a dad that I envisioned myself to be was over until it wasn't. That's when I began to recognize the other two discoveries. Things will be okay in the end, and other people's stories can be an inspiration. I learned from others that it was possible to be a good dad regardless of what happens to me or around me. Their stories were amazing and inspirational. How did their stories come together in the end? there must be something that provides a foundation even when everything around you falls apart at a moment's notice. What grounded me as a dad is the dad spirit inside of me. It was in my dad, in my granddad, and all the men in my family. Everything around me is temporary and ever-changing. As the old hymn teaches, except for the solid rock on which I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. So to this day, with all the discoveries I've had, my soul looks back and wonders how I got over.
Blessed be. Today's topic is groundlessness. And I have to say, this whole week dealing with this topic, it's not been a happy week for me. It's been a tough week. When it comes to Buddhist ideology, I feel both attraction and aversion. I can go so far and then I get to a point where it's, what are you saying? You want me to do what? Groundlessness is something that Buddhists talk about a lot, but it's a very alien concept to me. When I hear that word, my immediate thought is, oh, no, let's not go there. Give me solid ground, always. A Buddhist, of course, would respond, change is a constant. From the moment we are born to the moment we die, nothing ever stays the same. Good things don't last forever, neither do bad things. Change is just the way it is. And when change happens, often we feel like there's no ground beneath our feet, and that is scary. I understand. A friend of mine, a woman named Diana Hewlett, used to live in this area. We actually met cleaning out the chicken coops at a sanctuary called Wildwood. She wrote a blog about groundlessness, and she had this to say. Far too often, when presented with frightening news, a deep loss, or any major turbulence in life, when it's come cruising along, we desperately look for places of steadiness, something that we can hold on to, safety, a way to settle the nerves, calm the mind, soothe the heart. We have not been taught how to stop and connect to ourselves within these unsettling moments. We've not been taught how to feel the ripple of fear without analyzing, managing, or judging the situation. Could it be possible to drop into a state of open awareness and with clear eyes allow the fall? Pema Chodron, the Buddhist nun I mentioned earlier, is a leading authority on groundlessness. She's written a great deal about it. In her book, When Things Fall Apart, she wrote, things falling apart is kind of a testing and also kind of healing. We think the point is to pass the test or to overcome the problem. But the truth is, things don't really get solved. They come together and they fall apart. Then they come together again and they fall apart again, just like Llewellyn and his jars. And it's just like that. The healing comes from letting there be room for all of this to happen. Room for grief, for relief, for misery, for joy. Letting there be room for not knowing is the most important thing of all. Okay, I think I can do that. But she's describing the garden variety of groundlessness. And what she says, it makes sense. But right now, we're experiencing groundlessness on steroids. We're living in a world in which Donald Trump and his minions, even though they're fewer than we are, they're in control. And every day that feels awful and depressing and scary. And every day we see photos of people thrown to the ground and surrounded by violent governmental agents. And every day we are facing our own sense of fear. There's no day off. And how can we deal with this? I'm imagining that you think I have an answer to that question. Well, like most of you, I have been struggling with this since I learned the shocking, depressing news that Trump had been elected for the second time. And the anti-Trump leader I've been praying for has not yet arrived and may never appear. But I think some answers are beginning to present themselves. When Matthew spoke last week during Joys and Sorrows, he brought up the walk of peace. On October 26th, a group of Buddhist monks, and I'm going to slaughter this term, the Hondao Vipassana Bhavana Center in Fort Worth, Texas. They left their monastery and began a pilgrimage called the Walk of Peace. They're walking 2,300 miles. A few of them are barefoot. The rest of them are wearing walking shoes. And they're going from Fort Worth to Washington, D.C. They expect to arrive in D.C. on February 12th. The monks say this pilgrimage is not political. Rather, they want to raise awareness of loving kindness and compassion across the U.S. and the world. And as they walk silently and in a single line, they're drawing ever larger crowds of well-wishers, people who are moved by what they're doing, the simple act of walking. Some of those people are walking with them, others are giving them food and water and flowers, and they're accompanied by Aloka, a stray dog they found when they were in India, and they adopted her. By the way, Aloka has 600,000 followers on Facebook. And for many people, the sight of these simple Buddhist monks walking over 2,000 miles for peace is a sign of hope in these dreadful times. What really melted my heart was to see photographs. One photograph was officers from Wilkes County, Georgia Sheriff's Department, and they had escorted the monks to assure their safety on the road. And in these photos, these big, burly white guys are hugging Asian immigrants in traditional saffron Buddhist robes, and everyone is smiling. And then I saw this video from Houston, and some of the monks are standing with two white male police officers, and they're chanting in Vietnamese, I think, and wrapping simple peace bracelets around each officer's wrist to symbolize a prayer for the officer's safety and well-being and endurance as they serve their community. I was struck by the fact that the police officers once again were big, burly white men in their black uniforms with their guns in their holsters and their handcuffs put away, and they looked very comfortable and at ease with this ceremony honoring them. And they were being loved and offered compassion from these Asian immigrants in Buddhist garb. Bhikkhu Panakara, spiritual leader of the Walk for Peace, said, "We walk not to protest, but to awaken the peace that already lives within each of us." The Walk for Peace is a simple yet meaningful reminder that unity and kindness begin within each of us and can radiate outward to families, communities, and society as a whole. In a blog titled "Why We Walk," because people are wondering, the monks wrote, "Our walking itself cannot create peace, But when someone encounters us, either by the roadside or online or through a friend, when our message touches something deep within them, when it awakens the peace that has always lived quietly in their own heart, something sacred begins to unfold. I think a lot of people are yearning to hear just that message. And perhaps, these are the leaders we've been looking for. But I also think those leaders are here in this beloved community. Each of us is finding our way in our own way. Ray Hastings, the beautiful Ray Hastings, is organizing demonstrations and activities and gathering signs and inspiring others to do the same. Charles Gallia is running for office to represent District 40 in the Oregon House of Representatives and to bring his UU values to the state government. So needed. Several of our members are organizing to serve hot meals and bring food to people who are experiencing food insecurity. We're taking care of those who need us. For some of us, action may be donating to a candidate who can tip the balance in Congress or at the state level, or contacting politicians, as Eric said, and voicing our opinions. We are doing things to create change and return to civility. Whatever it is that each of us is doing, it's okay. It is our form of living into peace and sanity and thereby resisting the chaos and the fear. Exploring groundlessness reminds me that change is a constant. The ground is always shifting. Nothing lasts. All things end and new things begin. Understanding the concept of groundlessness reminds me that we are going to make it through this time. Make no mistake, we are in a time of extreme and frightening groundlessness. We know that. We know that the people in power want us to feel overwhelmed and powerless. They want us to become apathetic. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We don't know where the bottom is because the downward spiral continues to get worse, and each new attack fuels the chaos and the sense that we have no control. I've been adjusting myself to the instability of the world around me, but I remain resolute in my UU values and in the faith that this terrible time in our collective history will come to an end, just as other terrible times have come to an end. I don't know when, I don't know how, but we will find our way through this, and this will end. For now, we can find strength in our families, our friends, our colleagues, this church, and our belief in the UU principles, which provide us with guidance for being the best version of ourselves and being there for others in need. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen.